looking like this? Tell me, am I looking like this? No, not at all.
Hey, what's going on, you beautiful people? My name's TieDye, and today we're going to be continuing where we left off in our last tutorial. Now, if you followed the first tutorial, you'll have a picture somewhat like this, and what I'm going to be teaching you guys in this video is how to add trees, a sky, clouds, and other details, as well as some stuff in Photoshop to really just make your image pop and just look a lot better. So we cover the landscape in the first part. There will be an annotation on screen if you did miss that, but let's dive right into it. So, like I said, we're going to be making things such as these trees right here, and this is what we're going to start off with. Now, these trees are a lot more simple to make than one may think. There are many ways to do trees in a low poly sort of look like this. Some people get sort of an olive shape and twist it around. Some people get just a cone and just reduce the number of polygons in that. But there are a few ways to do it, and I'm going to show you my personal technique. I did not make this up myself. I did watch some tutorials and I found out how to do it that way. But what we're going to do is we're going to add a cube in, position it somewhere that you think is going to look good. Obviously, delete the font tag like we learned in the first part, and just position it and make it the right size as to what you think your tree base should look like. So I think right around there is good. I'm going to go back into my camera, and a tree there would be kind of good. I think that looks like a good position. I'm also just going to shrink it down a little bit more though, because I don't want it to be too big. And let's just go back. And as far as the tree size goes, that is good. I'm pretty happy with that. So what we're going to want to do is just make sure it is pretty much the center of your screen, just something that's easy to work with. We're going to make the cube editable by selecting it and hitting either C or the button that would be right there. I'm just going to hit C though. And what we're going to want to do is make sure that we select this little mouse cursor and the surface button. And this part is different for depending on what kind of version of Cinema 4D you have. If you have a version 14 or higher, you're going to be wanting to make your segments by doing this. So I'm going to explain both methods. I'm just going to show you guys how to do this, and then I'm going to go back to the other way to do it. So what we're going to be doing is pretty much making our tree out of different segments like this. As you can see, there's all these different segments that is created. Now, if you're using version 14 or higher, what you want to do is select a top or a side, depending on, you know, how early or late we are into this. But for now, we're going to select a top, then go to your move option and hold Control or Command if you're on a Mac, and click this top arrow and drag it up, and that's how you're going to make a new segment. Now, if you're on version 13 or lower, you're going to have to right-click, go to extrude, and and click on the actual surface and drag to the right, and it's going to make it bigger. Now I have version R14, so what I'm going to be doing is just the version that's a lot quicker, and I'm sorry for those of you who do have 13 or lower, it's going to take a bit longer, but what you're going to want to do is just make as many segments as possible that look like a tree, and I'm going to walk you through that right now. So I'm going to be holding Control, clicking up, and making that new segment there. I'm going to make it kind of tall. And since this is a tree, we don't want it to be perfectly straight. What I'm going to do is, since this is selected still, I'm going to go to the size option and make this a bit smaller. Maybe not that small, it might be a little too small. And then just position it to whoever I feel like looks like a good position for that. That's pretty good. We're going to continue and follow that step again. Raise it a bit higher. Continue to make this a bit smaller as we go up. And then move it to wherever we think looks good. And as far as the trunk of the tree, I think that looks pretty good. Now we're going to have to add in some branches, and this is where it gets slightly more complicated, but it's still the exact same technique. We're just going to have to do it a bit more often. So to add in a branch, what I'm going to be doing is holding Control, bringing this up, but I only want it to be about this much so that I can select this side and extrude it to over here, sort of making a branch. And then I'm going to shrink this down, you know, make it a bit more thin like an actual branch. And let's see, move it somewhere where I think it looks pretty good. I think right there, and then rotate the square so it's always, you know, sort of facing the same way that the other side of the rectangular prism is facing. So that's the beginning of our branch. I'm thinking that looks pretty good, and we're going to continue on with that technique, bring it over a bit, and then we're going to just end off this branch fairly early. I'm not going to go too in depth with how to do this. I mean, you can make branches for just hours and hours and make them as like in depth as you want to. But for the sake of this tutorial, I don't think you guys really want to see that, and I'm not going to bring that for you guys in this tutorial. But you guys are just going to get the general know-how as to how to do this. It really isn't too complicated, it's just kind of time-consuming. And we're going to continue on doing this. I'm kind of going to run out of things to say when it comes to this. And yeah, we're just going to continue on doing that. Rotate this, because as you can see that looks kind of awkward, so that's why it is important to rotate these. Ooh, wrong way. Let's see. There we go. And that's just one side of the tree done right there. I'm pretty happy with how that looks. And obviously we're not going to keep making these. We're going to duplicate these trees and put them over onto the other side or wherever we want to put them. I don't like to add too many trees. It's just because I think it overpowers the scene too much when you add a lot of trees. So we're going to just do the same thing on this side. And yeah, making the trees, it really isn't too complicated like I said. But you do have to have a bit of patience for it, because it is somewhat time consuming. And we're almost done here. I'm not going to add too many more branches at all. Don't worry about that. And put this on that side. Rotate it appropriately. And final branch here. I'm just going to pull this one out. I just want them to be very spread out so that there isn't just a bunch of branches going in one direction, because that's going to look kind of bad. Bring this one up. Rotate it to how it should be. And I forgot to shrink the other one. That's what I have to do. Shrink that one down, shrink that one down. And it doesn't have to be too detailed because we're going to be covering these up with the leaves that you saw there on the desktop. So that's what we're going to do right now. As far as the tree goes, I think that looks pretty nice. I'm actually going to add a texture to it right now, which is fairly simple. Just turn off specular, and in color, just make it something brown, or whatever color you want to make it. Because this whole thing is somewhat abstract. You really don't have to follow any particular rules. Slap that onto the tree. And, oops, sorry. Slap that onto the tree as a whole. And there we go. We have that tree. Oops. I may have just messed up my camera. Whatever. Put that back into position, and we are good. Good with that. Okay, I need to make sure I'm out of camera. There we go. I'm pretty happy with that. Now we're just going to add some leaves to the tree, and by doing that, we're going to just make a sphere. And wherever the sphere is, we're just going to drag it up. And as you guys can see, you already know where this is going. Delete the Phong tag, but with spheres it's a bit different. You also have to go into its object and delete the render perfect option here. Just uncheck that. Then I like to put it to this option here. You can mess around with all these options, they all look different, but how do you pronounce this? Octahedron, I think? Some crazy words. And then just mess around with the segments until you get something that you like. I'm going to go with 15. I'm pretty happy with that. And then we're just going to shrink it down to the appropriate size. And so whatever you want, because there is no right way to do this, guys. Like I said in the last tutorial, I don't want you guys to copy exactly what I'm doing. I just want you guys to make something that you think is going to look pretty cool, because this whole style, this whole low poly idea is really cool. And for the color of this, I don't know, it's going to be completely abstract. Let's go with a nice turquoise. I'm pretty happy with that color. I'm loving that color right now. And obviously we're going to have to make more, so hold controller command, click on the sphere and drag up to duplicate it. Then we're just going to move it over to the tips of the other branches, adjust the size and whatnot to make it the appropriate branch size and the appropriate corresponding leaf size. And we're just going to make that a bit smaller because of that, and continue on with this method until it looks good. And just 2 more to go. I told you, this tree, it does look nice and it adds quite a bit to the picture, but it is kind of a pain to make. It does take quite a while, but there's so many cool things you do. The more branches you make, the cooler the tree's gonna look. And even if you're doing a winter scene where there's no leaves at all, it looks really, really nice. So I'm pretty happy with how that tree turned out. It looks pretty good. In fact, I might actually make this a bit smaller. And yeah. Now what else I'm gonna do is, just to make this a bit more random, I'm going to be adding a polygon reduction to each of these spheres. All you have to do is just drag it in and mess with the reduction strength until you get something you like. I'm going to go, let's see. You don't want to add it too much, because if you do, it completely destroys it. But just hold control, drop into each sphere when you're happy with your setting, and you can obviously mess around with each one independently. But I am pretty happy with that. I'm also going to rotate each sphere a little bit, just so that they're not all the same. And rotate that like that, like that, like that. As long as you can't tell that they're from the same thing. you should be good. So there's a tree there. Now I'm going to be duplicating it and putting one closer to us on the other side of the stream. Now to do that, I'm going to select from the cube to the top of all the spheres, hit Alt or Option, I believe, on a Mac, and G, and it's going to put them into a group. So now it's one object. I'm just going to name this tree, and we're going to hold Control, bring it up to duplicate it, and I'm just going to move it over onto this side of the river. And drop it down. I'm going to rotate it though so it doesn't look the exact same. Something more along the lines of, not like that, that's kind of crazy. It's sort of at an angle that you can't really tell that it's the same. And we're also going to be changing the color of the branches in this one because we don't want it to be the exact same. So for that we're going to make a new material. And for this one I think we should make the branches a nice like golden yellow. I think that's going to be nice. Sort of like an orangish, goldish yellow. And I'm going to kill the specular on that. I should have killed the specular on the other one as well. Sorry about that. And we're just going to replace all these textures with this new one that we made. You don't have to. You can make it any way you want. But that's just the way I'm going to be doing it. And I think that looks pretty damn awesome. Now, I don't know why, but I feel like I should add a third tree. And once again, you just hold Control, drag up from the editor on the side there. And this one's just going to be nice and close up here. So I'm going to make the whole thing slightly bigger. I need to rotate that. That is completely wrong. And let's see. There we go. That looks nice. And just position it to wherever your heart desires it to be. Let's see. Maybe it's a bit too much on the screen. Maybe move it off screen a bit. It's all just trial and error, experimental, whatever you think looks good. And for this one, I want the branches to be a completely different color, something a little bit off, maybe like a... this kind of pink, that looks good. And I'm just going to open up the tree, delete all those colors, and slap on this funky pink. And I think that's going to look pretty cool. So there we go, there are our trees, and they definitely add a lot more to the picture than that was there before, because it really adds something more than just the terrain itself, which is kind of the whole point of the tutorial, I know, but whatever, you guys know what I mean. Next, what I want to do is add a sky. Now to do that, it is really simple, and if you guys have watched some of my speed arts, you may know how to do this, but we're just going to add in a plane. And with this plane, we're just going to rotate it so that its back is facing where we want the sky to be. Make it huge, absolutely huge, so it covers the entire scene. And just move it behind everything so that when we go back into our camera, you can't really see it, so I still need to make it a little bit bigger. And from there, delete the Phong tag. Make sure the number of width segments and height segments is a lot bigger than that, so let's see, 65. I'm going to go for 75. That seems like an appropriate number for right now. Then I'm going to add in a sky texture. You can make the sky any color you want as well, which is something that's really cool about this. It really does make a cool effect when the color of the sky is something a little bit off, sort of like a sunset maybe. For this in particular, what I want to do is make it sort of like a orange, an orangish red, something like that, a bit more red than orange. That should be good. I'm pretty happy with that color right there. I'm going to drag that on, and here's one of the problems. So the physical sky really depends on how much you can see the background. It might be blocking it, that's what I'm trying to say. So I'm just going to move it into a position where I can see it perfectly. That should be good. And yeah, just make sure you mess around with the physical sky that we added in the previous tutorial. Now for the plane, it's just a plain background and we don't like that, so we want to make it a bit more chunky. So for that, what I want to do is go to MoGraph, Effector, and Random. Drag that into our plane, and then go to Deformer, and Point, or Polygon, depending on what you want. I'm going to go for Point this time because it adds a bit more of a difference. And just mess around with it until you get something that you like. And then that's not the only one we're going to be adding though, we're also going to be adding a displacer. Throw that in there. Go to Shader and Noise. And then just mess around with the height on that as well, just so we don't have a normal looking thing. And we're also going to be adding a connect, which is going to be under the array picture. And we're going to put the plane into the connect. Now with the connect, we have to bring this up, so it gets sort of a very, very weird thing. The bigger the object, the higher you have to drag it up, so the tolerance for this one doesn't even start until about 450. So if you don't think anything's happening, just keep going and something eventually will happen. And obviously, the Phong mode, we have to change that to manual, like I explained in the last tutorial. And that's already making it a bit different, sort of a weird abstract sky. And I'm kind of going to make it a bit brighter, actually, now that I think about it. It is a little too much. Let's see. I'm going to make it like that. In fact, I'm actually going to make it a gradient. That's what I'm feeling for this one. Let's see. So I'm still going to have that sort of orange theme. So it's going to be a yellow to a darker orange. Yeah, I'm liking that. And then I'm also going to have as a 2D V, just so you can actually tell that it's really changing. You need to make this a bit darker as well. Just mess around until you're happy with something. That's the whole point of this. And I am pretty content with how this is looking. So that is that for the sky. And the last thing I wanted to show you how to do in this tutorial is add clouds, because, I don't know, it just adds a very nice touch, and I found with the render options that we put in the last tutorial, it really makes the clouds look cool. I don't know what it is, but they have this nice sort of shading. Let me show you on the desktop. They just have this nice sort of shading there, and you can make them go around a specific thing to highlight it, like I did with this mountain, or just put them anywhere you want. And in this one, we're just going to put them all over the sky. It's going to be cool. And let me just get out of the camera mode. And as you can see, it's going to start to be a bit more laggy than normal, because there's just so much stuff going on here. But the same technique that we use on these balls here, in these pictures, we're going to use on the actual clouds. So we're going to drop in a sphere, just put it somewhere that you can work with it, zoom in, delete the font tag on this cloud, go in, get rid of perfect render, and put it to whatever option you want. Like I said, I like octohedron. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right at all, but let's just go with that. Just add the right amount of segments that you want. I'm going to go with 13 on this one. I believe it doesn't change between 15 and 13, so it's the exact same thing. And just add a color that you want. Once again, the color can be anything you want. It really doesn't matter. I'm just going to do a nice light blue for this one. Light, not very saturated blue. Turn off specular. Plop that on, and there we go. I think that's going to look nice up against the, what is it? The background. Actually, I might want it to be a bit more blending in with the background, so I might do a non-saturated yellow like that. I think that would look really cool. And now that we have this sphere, what I'm going to do is throw in a polygon reduction onto the sphere, like we did with the last one, and just make it into something that looks kind of cool. For this case, 20% looks pretty nice. Then what we're going to do is duplicate that sphere, move it somewhere where it's sort of, I don't know, just sort of like make it into a cloud, make it a bit bigger, move it into positions that look like they're cloud-like, and just keep messing around with that until you're happy with the turnout of what your cloud looks like. So in this case, I'm going to have 3 balls. They're going to be touching like that. This one needs to be a bit smaller, that's the problem. And I'm pretty happy with how this cloud looks overall. It's nothing special, but we're going to group them by putting them together, hitting Alt-G, and that's going to make them into one group like I did with the tree. And I'm going to just name this one Cloud. So what we're going to do with this cloud now is we're going to drop it into an array. So we put the cloud into the array, and as you can see, if we select the array now, it is just a bunch of clouds, which is not what we're looking for right now. So what we have to do is just change the radius of it, just spread them out a lot. You can change the number of cloud copies that you want, if you want a lot or if you want a little. And the point of this is it's going to make it a lot easier to add as many clouds as we want. So if I go back into our scene, I'm just going to put these back here and just tilt them so you can't really tell that they're together. Also, you really want to just spread the radius so that they don't look like they're together. Like that doesn't really look like they're together. So if I just change the radius and rotate it a bit, position it in a way where you can't really tell. Let's see. And just add a few more. Actually, the less copies, the less it looks like it's together, which is a cool thing and is a good thing. You really don't want to make it too obvious that it is all together. And I'm just going to still continue to bring up the radius just so it's all spread out nice and even, and then we're going to give this a render and see if there's any tweaking that we need. So we'll be right back after this render is done. See you guys. So that's what it looks like when it's rendered out. The one thing I have to comment on is the clouds kind of look like pieces of popcorn, but whatever, that doesn't matter. Before we render this out and put it into Photoshop, I kind of want to change how the sky looks. Where is it? Where did I put that sky? Where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. It was under Connect. I totally forgot. I'm not too happy with this orangish texture. Kind of looks like fire. I'd rather just have it just be a normal blue. So I'm going to have a lighter blue into a bit of a darker blue. Then we're going to render it out and put it into Photoshop. If you are continuing from the first tutorial, you should have those render settings. And the wind just knocked my door shut. So we're going to continue on. I'm actually just going to mess around with this a bit, turn the Connect down a little bit. I want a lot more segments in here. And what I want to do now is, like I said, we already have these render settings from the previous tutorial, so I'm just going to hit render, and I'll see you guys when we're in Photoshop. Alright, so this is the image we rendered out here, and I think it turned out pretty cool. Definitely nothing crazy, because we didn't put too much time into it, but still I'm pretty happy with how it looks, so we're just going to drag that into Photoshop. It'll make a 1920 by 1080 composition for us, and this is what we have to work with. So right away, I don't want to make it a background, so I'm going to take off that lock, and I don't know why, but I think it's a little too saturated. I'm never too big of a fan of something being too saturated, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control U on this image, or Command U if you're on a Mac, and just turn down the saturation slightly, just so it's nothing too overwhelming. Obviously that's a little too much, that's black and white, and that is like you're on meth. So we're going to just find a nice happy medium, I think a negative 25. Negative 25 should be good. And I'm pretty happy with that. Now, pretty much from here, it's whatever you like to do. I have my own personal taste. Like, for some reason, I like to add just a nice little bit of black and white to the corners. I'll show you how you do that. You're going to want to grab your brush, and you're going to want to make it white or black, either one. I think it actually works with any color. I just never bothered to experiment. And then make your brush on hardness 0%, and just make sure the brush is bigger by using the square bracket keys, or just right-clicking and adjusting the size that way. But you want it to be roughly this big, so it's covering the whole side. And on a new layer, which you do by pressing the new layer button, you just want to draw on about that much on each side. And what we want to do here is then in the blending options, bring it down to saturation, and it just makes it black and white. Like, if we went over the whole thing, it would be black and white. But we're not going to do that. Let me just find a nice amount here to make it actually black and white. I think like just like that much. I don't know why. It just adds such a nice touch when it comes to something like this that has so much saturation. Next thing I want to do is actually underneath that layer is make it a bit darker. So for doing that, there's many ways to do it. Just a quick way that I like to do it. Just go over the whole thing in black, and then with your eraser tool, make it rather large and make sure the softness is, or the hardness is at 0%, sorry. And just in the middle, just go like that. And then from there, you can change the blending option to whatever you want it to be. Overlay is looking pretty nice. I'm actually pretty happy with that. Maybe drop the opacity a little bit. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how that's looking. You can do so much stuff with this as well. If you want to, you can add in other stuff. Like I have these packs here. If you want to, go to MediaMilitia.com. They have so many great free packs, so many great textures and stuff. As you guys probably already know, there's a texture that I really like. It's this paper texture here. I just got this for searching Google Images and just searched cardboard paper texture. This one came up really, really good. It adds so much to it, especially for something like this where low poly kind of looks like paper craft. If you just drag that on and just put it somewhere like that, and then let's see, I should probably put it underneath all that. And just set it to overlay or soft light. As you can see, it just adds a little bit of grunge everywhere. And let me just rasterize that layer by right-clicking and pressing rasterize. You just erase the middle a bit, and it just adds grunge to the edges, and it just gives it a really nice look. And yeah, it looks great. Another thing that we can do is also from MediaMilitia.com. They have all of these images here, and they're all free. Everything's free on that website. That's why I'm promoting it so much. There's these two pictures here that I love adding to low poly. I don't know why. I'll show you some other images. I tend to add it to a lot of my low poly images. Like in this one right here, just on the sides to make it nice. And this one, obviously, I don't know if I added it to any other ones. Did I add it to this one? No, I didn't. Would have been nice with that, actually. So I'm just gonna add these in. I'll have a link in the description to all of these, by the way, so don't worry. I'm gonna add in this one, this specific image, and I'm just going to be putting them at the sides, because the sides just, I don't know, the fact that they're black and white, it just adds a nice touch. So I'm gonna press Control J to duplicate that layer, Command T to select it, right click it, flip horizontally, and just drag it over to the other side by holding Shift and dragging. And there we go. We just have those nice sides. Definitely look kind of cool. Another thing I kind of want to do is with this black and white layer, as you can see, that definitely makes a big difference. It is nice. I'm glad I added that. I kind of want to make a bit more black and white around the corners. So for that, obviously, just the same technique, just in the corners. And it just, I don't know. For a color like this, or a picture like this with so much color, I think it just adds a nice little touch. And we're going to do one last thing here. Actually, no, a few more things. We're going to have to add some color correction with these curves. So we're just going to click on curves under adjustment, drop down from RGB to blue, and then click on this corner and drag it up. And as you can see, it adds a nice little tint of blue. And we're going to go to this corner and drag it down. It has sort of like a Instagram type filter. I really like that. I'm really in love with what I discovered online the other day with that sort of filter. So I'm going to add that, and then also go to hue and saturation. Just mess around with whatever you think looks best. If something looks completely crazy like that and you like it, go for it. But for this one, I think I'm going to drag it a little bit to this side, and yeah, just mess around until you find something you like. Saturation, you can go crazy, you can go black and white. If you're a really lonely girl on Instagram, you might like that one. But just mess around until you find something you like. I'm gonna go with that. Lightness, I don't tend to mess around with too much because there's really no point. And yeah, one last thing I want to do here is, what is it? These low poly images, they look so good with just like a piece of text in the middle. So I'm gonna find a cool font that I found online not too long ago. Here it is. What is it called? Lavendera, which is really cool because it has 3 different modes as well. I'm just gonna go to the regular mode, and then if you just go to the center, which we can just drag out these rulers and find the exact center point. If these aren't here, just press Control R, and they will be. And I'm just gonna type out low. That's pretty small right now. Low poly. And it just, this font looks so cool. When you have cursive font with low poly, I don't know what it is, it just turns out really nice. So you could have it right in the middle like that. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to add any text at all. But I just think that looks kind of cool right there. And the whole idea is just to do whatever you think looks best. I'm not here to tell you guys exactly how to do anything. I'm here to teach you guys the techniques that you need to know to make something that you want to. Because the hardest thing is learning how to do it. But the other hard part is actually coming up with the creative ideas as well. So I'm teaching you guys how to do it, and then it's your job to come up with how to make something unique on your own. So I'm just going to delete this low poly for now because I don't want to get too far into messing around with text, but that's how we add those trees, the sky, the clouds, and just some basic color corrections to make this look a bit better. You can do whatever you want with this. But I think I'm going to leave it at that. So thank you guys for watching this tutorial. If you could drop a like, that'd be absolutely amazing. And if you didn't watch part 1, this probably doesn't make too much sense, so you should probably go back and watch part 1. But I hope you guys learned something. Once again, guys, my name's Tadai. Hopefully you enjoyed the tutorial, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.